Welcome to the end of day review for Wednesday, the 21st of February 2024. As usual, starting off with the economic calendar, there's one dreadful news event. However, that is subsequent to the end of the London cross, in which case we don't trade. Essentially, it's 3 hours after the end of our trading session and thus has no impact on our trading decisions for the day. Then moving on to the daily chart, what we can see is that there isn't any consecutive bullish or bearish candles off late to concern ourselves with in terms of a daily bias. And then from a 4H perspective, in terms of the 4H market structure, we can see that from a swings perspective, we are essentially well confirmed to be in a bearish trend. The 4H got quite interesting yesterday, and that's purely because there's a couple of things going on, right? So the first is we reached the pro trend extreme. This was last week Tuesday, and what that meant was that the pullback primary leg, which is this leg right here, achieved its objective of reaching the pro trend extreme. Once we reached the pro trend extreme low, this was the substructure low. As you can see, everything is efficiently mitigated, so this served as the last point of supply for the pullback leg. Once that failed, we knew that the pullback phase was completed and the pro trend primary leg was then validated, from which we identified two pro trend primary leg OBs, which we could base new secondary mid-time frame legs from, or irrespectively we trade to the short side, because there's only reason to trade to the short side given that counter trend trading has achieved its objective. However, what we can then see what had happened yesterday is that we actually had supply failing. So from a substructure perspective, it's important to pay attention to it because it somewhat helps you validate when ideas or scenarios on the higher time frame are changing. So for my trade plan specifically, I allow substructure resets, meaning I can follow the latest structure, internal structure that is, after we react from a pro trend OB, or we sweep or break a void swing structure. um, Breaking it is preferable, but either or works. However, what I'm trying to say is that yesterday we actually, or over this past week, we had a supply failure and then demand holding, and then a break of structure, which then validated that demand is in control. And what that meant is that we actually validated from a swing perspective that this swing potential lower high is actually weak. And if you just think about it logically, this was your last lower high making a lower low. This is your next lower high, and everything was in place for this lower high or potential lower high to actually break the swing low. And since it failed to do so and we had a full order flow shift on a 4 hour, it indicates that this is likely weak, potentially targeted, and price is potentially actually going to come deeper into this pro trend extreme, after which it will build a new pro trend primary leg and then actually achieve its objective. So what did this mean for our trading? Perhaps let me just clean up some of these highlights. What it means for our trading is that we are essentially in an unconfirmed scenario, because there's both reasons to long and short. There's reasons to short because we're reacting to this primary OB, and then there's reasons to long because of the unconfirmed lower high target, and then obviously we've got this unconfirmed primary leg from which 4H OBs are identified. Because we are in an unconfirmed scenario, if you may recall from this period of time right here where we were in an unconfirmed scenario, we required three elements to be present in order to trade in any direction. One is that 4H OB backing for a structure, available substructure target, and then internal range liquidity being available on the mid time frame or the trading time frame. So for our perspective, starting off with the London session right around here, we have this 4H OB, and this latest reactions substructure target would be this low here, and since it's not achieved, we have reason to trade to the short side, and there's likely IRL in this leg right here. And then from a long perspective, we have the unconfirmed primary leg, and whilst this is the most obvious OB, there is a small window of imbalance slash fair value gap existing here that was wicked a couple of times but never really body broken. So that serves as a barrier for us to not trade again short. So what that meant is coming into the London session, which was in and around this area, we could short until we got to this point, after which shorts become invalid until we can validate new IRL. So having said all of that, let's move on to the 5 minute, and what we can see here is that in London we validated that the Asia high of the day will hold. Um, However, the London session actually went into and reached the window of imbalance, which then led us with, or left us with, this um, chain, which was a valid POI because it had firm alignment, and I was ready to execute on that. However, we're facing a significant barrier, and in order to validate this additional IRL right here, we would need the current day to print a new, so the IRL to be created first, which is done. Then we need the current day to create a new high of the day, um, and then validate that new high of the day to then say that this IRL is ready to target. Obviously by this point it's too late, because New York putting in a high of the day would mean that we cannot validate it because there isn't any red folder news to support why a New York high of the day would hold. So for those reasons, this trade was then invalidated and nullified, so that's fine. Um, and then what happened next? Sorry, I just want to clean this up. And then what happened next was that the London low of the day was put in, and when New York opened, you can see that the London range, which I'll make it clearer right now. So the London range right there was taken out by New York, and thus validated that the London low of the day is likely to hold, which then validated this entry right here. I wasn't too keen on actually using the entire range. I thought it didn't really make sense, especially given the time of day, and so that's a bit of a judgmental aspect, which is not ideal, but I think it's warranted in this case. And we had a nice flip POI based chain to trade from, which price came in nicely, actually broke it and came a lot deeper, which wasn't ideal. However, at this point in time, we pretty much at the end of the trading session, so I like to close or not take any trades 30 minutes before the end of the London cross. And as you can see, this trade was triggered prior to the 30-minute mark, so I was triggered in. We had a brief push up and then price push down quite aggressively, likely taking a whole bunch of liquidity, although because I knew that the London low of the day was validated, I was quite happy to keep this open. However, by the time of 6 p.m., which is the London close, I decided that it wasn't worth, well, to be fair, what I've done with my trading is actually, because I found a lot of ambiguity when it came to trades like this at the end of the session. I didn't know how long to hold it. Do I wait till 8, 9, 10 p.m.? Do I just hope that price will have enough volume to reach break even? So anyway, after much deliberation, I reached the conclusion that actually it just makes sense to exit the trade. If you're negative, then set your TP at break even plus commissions, and you're either going to take a break even or a loss. That's fine. Or alternatively, if you are in profits, just close the trade. It's the optimal exit time for any position where it doesn't make sense to hold it overnight. In this case, this trade is severely counter trend, so it certainly doesn't make sense to hold it. Also, we're in an unconfirmed scenario, so aggressive targets like 1 to 3 and 1 to 5 make sense, and holding overnight certainly doesn't make sense. So that's pretty much my end of day review. I hope you had a good trading session. Just to summarize, I took one break even for today, and I'm perfectly happy with that. So we'll chat again for the London outlook. Have a good evening.